Okay, now we can see hundreds of me. I'm gonna minimize this. Close this. Minimize this. I could cry. Everything was working perfectly. Start streaming. Video capture device not available or connected. So that's a good time. Alright. Well, I can just get myself together and start out the stream. For real. Basically, I've been really excited to do this and now I'm kind of miffed after that, but alright, let me just relax and get over myself. I was thinking about what to do for a learning/educational stream today, and then through unforeseen circumstances, I must also talk up, I think. Anyway, I needed to make a little iOS sample app. I was sent a spec, some basic images, and I love doing things like that, like little, very self-contained, but you still have quite a lot of freedom how you go about it. It's just like a proof of concept. This isn't even really a proof of concept because everybody knows that this can be done. It's nothing complicated, but it's something to start with. I'm very excited to do it. It'll be a small Swift iOS app. I'm going to treat the stream as basically pair programming. So you're my rubber duckies. I can talk to you. If anybody would like to talk or ask any questions, that's super encouraged. But I'm going to treat it exactly like I'm starting a new project. So, similarly to the Swift Spring learning the other day or the other week, I'll like make a repo, use Postman, do everything as I go. Exactly how I would if this will work. The only thing I've already done is created the repo, but it's just an empty repo now, so that's fine. You've seen me create repos multiple times. I have a whole video on version control, so I don't have to do that here. So let's see. That's basically the intro. The goals for this: creating a working Swift iOS app that does what the spec needs me to do. I do have a little spec and some pictures, so we'll look at those now. And that's if we can do what we want there, then, or what we asked for there, then we'll have accomplished our goals. And if anybody learns anything in the process, even better. Okay, I'm going to start off with the spec because that's a good place to start. So let's have a look. Cool. Brief. You are the owner of a movie theater on Tikiana City. I'm not familiar with that name. On the Wiki homeworld of Kashyyyk. I am familiar with that. Your customers are bored with the never-changing selection and are asking for something completely different. They want to see what's playing on Earth. Wikis are the main exporter of computer technology for the New Republic. So naturally, you roll up your sleeves and get hard to work. You quickly scribble. I can't even read tonight. You quickly scribble down some notes, and after a few hours of relentless work, you have a design in mind. I guess that's the spec. Tasks: implement an iOS movie listing app. Build out the project to the attached designs. Connect your application to the movie database at this. So this is the API. Then, for authentication, pass the authorization bearer wiki 2019 header. Okay. Pass the API response and display the results as outlined in the design. Make sure to group movies by categories. Implement a detail view for the movies in the list. Implement a search view by connecting to an API. It's the same API, you just add a search term, okay, or the same call, I mean. Obviously it's the same API. Surprise us, add a feature that you think would work well here. For instance, advanced search integration with another API, a favorite functionality. Describe the feature in a separate markdown file. Okay. So I'm not sure what feature I'll add. I think I'll do the required functionality and then look at what might be cool to add after that. Deliverables. Make sure to include all source code in a GitHub or Bitbucket repo. That's fine. We have a GitHub repo. It's just empty. Include an assignment.zip file containing your compressed app bundle. Your app bundle must represent a simulator build of your app. After running an iOS simulator via Xcode, look in blah blah blah. Okay, that's fine. That's when we're finished. That's not an issue. Evaluation criteria. iOS best practices. I'm going to use the best practices I know. Completeness. Did you complete the features? So the features are app listing, movie listing, movie details, and a search function. Correctness. Does the functionality act in a sensible, thought-out way? Hope so. Maintainability. This is written in a clean, maintainable way. Testing. Is the system adequately tested? So I'll try to write unit tests as I go. Excuse me. My unit tests tend to fall off as I get closer to the UI, but I usually start with the logic anyway, so that's okay. Alright, well, that's our spec. Oh, there's a little bit more. We have some images to work from. So this is the Wiki Movies. We can see it has like a action bar with our home and search, our title, and then the genres with a list of movies for each genre. And then the detail view is the same image, a backdrop image, title, rating, stars, year, length, director, cast, and whatever detail. Okay, so for me, starting out would be creating a repo, which I'll show you I've done. Maybe connecting to the API with Postman so we at least know what to expect there. And then, sorry, I'm looking down here all the time because I wrote out some notes earlier. I'll put this up here. And I'm still going to be looking that way. So after that, beginning the iOS project. And I'll show you what I do there. Some pods, I'll be using definitely lint, possibly just lint, maybe Alamo Fire, but honestly, not sure it's necessary. I'm doing this very much how I would do a project live. So there's going to be a lot of Googling, research. I actually wanted to not have this open. Oh, well, this will do. Yes, okay, cool. So here's our empty tab, that's fine. Googling research the design patterns that I want to use. There are two basically. The coordinator for navigation and MVVM, which is just a sort of general structure that most, I think, Swift projects use these days. And we're going to go through all of them and set them all up as we go. All right. So, like I said, let's start with our repo. So, we know it is, I've actually checked it out already. So yeah, like I said, I created an empty empty GitHub repo called Wiki Movies. This is it. So we can cd documents, and it's in projects, and it's Wiki Movies. And that's here. It looks like there's only one thing, which isn't entirely true because there's also a hidden git ignore. So just to start, we can nano our git ignore. Oops. It can't see it, but it is there. Git ignore. So yeah, now you can see it's there. So this is gonna ignore. This is a basic Swift git ignore file from GitHub. It'll do perfectly well for most of the things we need. I like to ignore my pods directory. I know that I've read about the pros and cons. The pro is that you can check out the project and run it. The con is that like it adds a lot of baggage to your repo. If someone like updates a pod version, you could have conflicts. If someone edits pod library files, you can have issues when someone updates one. I don't know. I think it's just I prefer to ignore it and just install my pods. For reference, pods are like custom or external libraries for Swift, or not even, for Xcode projects. Not really using Carthage or anything. Not really using Fastlane. And that's it. Alright, so we can actually already make a change. Oops. Checks. Yes, alright, so get status. Get diff. So you can see all that we did was uncomment the pods. We can get commit. Added pods to the Null file. Okay. And if we push this, GitHub. So this is my work account, but but I'm not pushing on my work account. It's on my casual messing around account. But if we go there, we should now see, added pods to the ignore file. Fantastic. All right, so that's our repo set up and ready to go. That's important. Next is Postman. Okay, here is Postman. This way we can check that the API works and does what we want before we start coding anything. You see, this is my work Postman account, which has only one thing, and this also won't even work anymore because it has an expiry token. So let's rename this Wiki Movies. Cool. And then we have, right, so this is the API. Add a request. Hello. Okay, it is a GET request. List. Oh, let's call it all movies. It can be pretty basic here. If we say send, I don't think it'll work. Yeah, unauthorized. So we are supposed to add a bearer token. So in our authorization, I forget every time. I think if we say authorization and the value is that, and then we send. There we go. Easy peasy. Okay. So this is the call that we'll do when the app starts up, or when you press search, or when you clear a search, I guess. Although if we've listed them all, we could just filter the search locally, which would be quicker. I suppose that's a design decision we can make. So each of these entries here in this list is a movie. So this is a movie, from there to there. The backdrops, so this is an image, the poster image, the description, genres, actors, director, everything. Okay, cool. And then there's another, we want to add a, how do I spell movie? Rename. Cool. Rename. Little movie. Movie search. Okay, so I'm just gonna rename this yet again. Okay, cool. So a movie search, exactly the same, and with the same header, auth. Hello. Oh no, this is param. That's not what I want to do. Yeah. Authorization, that bearer. Our parameters. it was Q, and then if we type, it didn't say what we can search on. So I don't know if that means I can search on everything. Maybe we want to search on genre. So let's see what happens if we say Q is crime. You see it appends it to the path here. So we search. So now we should have, yes, quite a lot fewer movies. And hopefully, oh, there's only 2. And they do both have crime as a genre. Okay, so we know we can search on genre. I don't know if we can search on, like, an actor? Oops. Send? That returns nothing. So maybe we can't search on an actor. Can we search on a title? The Dark Knight. The Dark. Yes? Okay, but if I search The Dark, that has The Darkest, so that has it in the overview. Interesting. This returned quite a few things though. This is also Batman Begins. Okay, so presumably The Dark is somewhere here, or it's just linked. I don't know. Either way, we're not actually in charge of how the search works. We're just going to ask them for a search term, and we're going to display what comes back. Oh yeah, we're not going to search locally because they gave us a search API, so... Right, well, we know that searching on genre works, so let's just leave it like that. Okay, cool. That is our API. We can close this, Great. That's our Postman setup and our repo setup. Easy. Nice. Next step. God, that's starting and stopping at the beginning though. We want to create our project. Xcode. This is the weather app. I am going to use some of the things that I did here. As reference, but most importantly right now we're just going to create a new project. Not a game, unfortunately. An app. Did I move the camera? Okay, the product name. I called the Repo Wookie Movies. They didn't really tell us. It's an iOS movie listing app. So let's call it Wookie Movies. Movies. I can't spell movies. Organization identifier. It can be ComTest because it is just a test. We are sure as shit not using Swift UI. There's nothing wrong with Swift UI. I'm just not really familiar with it. We do want tests. We don't need core data. Seems fine. Seems fine. All seems fine. Let's go. It's gonna start with a storyboard, but I'm gonna freaking delete that thing just immediately. I don't like using a storyboard. We are gonna create it in this folder. Don't need to create a Git repo on my Mac because this is a Git repo. Add to any project workspace. No. Great. Edit tick. Do I want it there? No, I don't. I want it here. Let me just check quickly. I know. I'm just going to move all of this. I'm just going to move this here. Okay. Close. I don't know if that broke everything. In the radio folder, Wookie movies. No, I think I'm probably just annihilating everything here. This is empty. Basically, I just want our Xcode repo to. I want the repo to be at the same level as everything else. So if I open this, is this gonna work? Yeah, it does. Okay, totally planned. Cool. So what do we have now? We have a storyboard with a view controller. We have a launch screen. We have our tests and UI tests. For the record, I will pretty much not be using UI tests at all. That's like a subject of another video. That's one where we both learn again. Cool. Then there's a lot of organization and changes that are going to happen. We're going to add a folder structure and everything, but we don't need to right now. The first thing that we're going to do is add pods. So let's see, git status. Wow, look at this. It already thinks I deleted everything. Okay, this is a good start. You know what I like to add? I like to add .ds stores to my ignores. Oops. Now I've been working on a PC for the last few days. Okay, cool. So let's add that. X is the video git status now. It's gone. See, so now the git is not going to add the .ds store files, which is great. And if we can git add star. Before we do that, let's do a pod init. So again, pods are pods are one way of managing external libraries and getting them into your project, keeping them up to date. That coffee's getting cold. The only pod we're going to add to start is Swift lint. Lint keeps you honest. It basically just makes sure that you're using the right styling and code formatting and sets a standard. And every time I need to install it, I have to look up how, because I can't remember. It stops you doing things like this, which are bad. It stops you using unnecessary things like this, because, for instance here, it knows that colon on wrong side is an int because it equals 0. It doesn't need you to tell you, or it doesn't need you to tell it that. So, how we add pods. Firstly, I need to start pressing the right button to copy. So if I could give anybody one freaking bit of advice, it would be to not switch between a Windows keyboard and a Mac keyboard. So let's nano pod file. So all that pod init does is it creates a basic pod file. A pod file is really just a list of pods that you want to install when you do a pod install. And you need to do a pod install before any of them will work. Then it updates the file that you used to open the project. I'll show you that. So the moment we open the project by double clicking this wikimovies.xcode project, that's going to update to XE workspace, and then we will no longer use Xcode proj once we install. So we're going to start with just swiftlint. If I could, yes, we want to save that. And now if we do a pod install, this is fine. I'm not worried about the platform version at the moment. It successfully installed one pod. There is a little bit more to installing swiftlint. You've got to do some settings in it's recommended way. Okay, so you download swiftlint binaries, dependencies in pods during your next pod install, and allow you to invoke blah where you store build phase. It's the recommended way to install specific version of blah. So yeah, so you integrate SwiftLint into your project. If you install SwiftLint by CocoaPods, the script should look like this. So we want to, I'll show you now. Alright, so now we did our pod install. There is a wikimovies.exe workspace file. This is now what we use to open. And this pod log file basically lists all of the, I can show you, pods you're dependent on and their versions. That's, you can delete the pods, the pod lock, and the exe workspace if you feel so inclined. And when you do a pod install, it'll update those. So let's see, what do we need to do? We need to add a build phase, I believe. Let's see what it says. Project file navigator, click on primary app, go to build phases, click the plus, new run script phase, and insert the following. Okay. Targets, build phases, plus new run script phase. Okay, run script. And now it's this. So it should look like, yeah, so this is if you installed it, I think using Carthage maybe, but if you installed it via SwiftLint, this is, we are not going to do autocorrect, we can correct things ourselves. And save. Not that worried about that. Atom, we are not worried about any of these things. I believe that's all that we need. So if we now do a build, it should build, but it might now have some Swift warnings. Build failed. Okay, so these are lint errors. These are not like actual compile errors. And yes, we do not want to call our thing. I'm afraid that if I rename, well, let's try refactor. Refactor, rename. Okay, well, SwiftLint should stop moaning about that. Thankfully, we're still at the, so let's get the project building, remove our initial warnings, and then do our first actual git commit. So let's see what's next. Another naming violation. Shocker. It's the tests. Alright, and then there are some line length violations. Update to recommended settings. Perform changes, okay. Continue. Alright. Not gonna worry about that one right now. Yeah, we shouldn't have double empty spaces. This is like, ugh. To be honest, we don't need any of these empty spaces. Also, this is the view controller that we're going to change, so that's not an issue. Line length, these are easy to fix. So, different ways of doing this. Different agreed upon standards. One thing, let's see. This is how my current, no? Do we do it like this? I think we do it like this. Yeah, people have mixed feelings about this formatting, but I'm gonna roll with it. It's my team leader likes it. I don't know if Lint will like it actually. Let's see. It's complaining about file lengths and trailing spaces and not file lengths, line lengths. So we can just halve these comments. These comments can mostly be removed anyway, but I'll leave them for now. If we build now, opening brace should be a single, preceded by a single space on the same line as the declaration. Okay, fine. Is it still okay with this? Okay, yeah it is. Alright, let's just do that. Okay, cool. See, no warnings, but there are warnings in other files. Anyway, there's only a couple, so we can quickly fix those. Let's just break up these comments. There. This is really like, okay, unused binding violation, prefer not equal null. Godlet. Seen as window scene else return. Well, is this used? No, it checks if it can cast scene to a window scene. And if it can't, then it returns, but it doesn't do anything with it. This line can kind of just be ignored. Okay. Alright. I'm really just ignoring the content of these comments. Anyway, we're almost done with our warnings. What is this? Capabilities for signing and capabilities may not function correctly because its entitlement uses a placeholder team ID. To resolve this, select a development team in the Wookiees Movies editor. We don't have a development team, so this one we might just have to live with. Also, just for testing, we can, just to make sure that things are working, we have a storyboard, which I'm gonna delete, but we can, I don't use storyboards anymore. How do these work? I'm coming across as a giant noob. Plus? Yes, okay, label. Let's just slap this bad boy in the middle. Test label. Okay, cool. So now there's a test label in the middle. I suppose we can just... not that. Horizontally and vertically center it. There we go. Okay. So if we run this now, I prefer using, for no particular reason, iPhone 8. I'm going to just quickly change this one to... did this build? Yes, it's attaching to iPhone 8. This is maybe this launch screen? Ta-da! Okay, the app is now running and displaying a launch screen. And not a launch screen. It did display the launch screen, but the launch screen's just white. And then our test label. So that's perfect. This is our lint is running. Our app is loading up. I'm going to change how that works and introduce some patterns. Although I think before I do that, I'm going to start working on the models to load data from the API. See, there's different approaches here. You can either focus on downloading the data and implementing that functionality, or you can focus on building the UI. But I personally like to do the data first and then build the UI on top of that. So that is how I'm going to start. Alright, let's do our first commit. So git status. No, you know what? I want to nano again. Ignore. I don't want to include the podfile.lock. Where's the pods? Start.ac workspace, and I also want to podfile.lock. Okay, so cool. The pod file you do want to include. You need that. The rest is all fine. We want all of this. So let's just get... Can I add everything? What? There we go. That's probably not very safe to do normally, but for this project it's fine. So that added all of the project files, the ignored updates, and the new pod file. And none of the files that I was looking to ignore, so that's perfect. Git commit am initial project with pods. Pod. Well, let's just go the one. Swift int pod. Cool. Status. Git push. Fantastic. So if we now open our repo, we refresh our repo, it's now going to have actual stuff in it. I'm again committing from Blue Code James, which I was hoping not to commit from. If we do, now this is another thing, git config user dot I looked this up earlier. In half a second, if we want to git config user dot name. Oh, well, that's right. Email. Yeah, that's not right. So I think we can just add my email. And if we know git status, what's the next change? So if I now do well, let's display that again. Cool. Git, well, let's nano our readme. That's the one that's always safe to change. Users Swift int. There you go. Not a really commit updated readme git push. Cool. Switch this back. Great. Got too tight for this, but I'm very motivated to push on. So now, if I check. Whew, okay, right user. I thought I had done that. Apparently I was wrong. So I didn't really want Blue Code James committing to this project. Cool. We now have a working Swift project. And we can start slogging away. Alright, two things off the bat. I mentioned there's sort of, you can start with your models and data, or you can kind of start with the UI. I'm going to do a bit of both. I'm not going to do the actual UI initially. I'll do that after I'm loading all of my data lists. But I am going to do the coordinator. So coordinator is a design pattern in Swift to handle navigation. Typically, what a lot of people do, including myself, in the past, is handle their navigation in the view controllers, or maybe move it out to your view models. Sorry, I don't think either of those things should be responsible for the navigation, and coordinator is a pattern that sort of gets around that. So let's open it. well, a nice Swift coordinator pattern. I was reading this earlier. So this is nice. Basically, I'm not gonna use a storyboard, so my instantiation there will be a little bit different, but that's not an issue. I actually like creating my UIs programmatically if possible, so I'll see about that. You basically have a coordinator protocol, and then you implement concrete coordinators, and they handle initializing your view controllers and presenting them. So that's the idea behind it. There are a few different ways that I've seen it implemented, but this looks like a cool way. It's a little bit different to how I've done before, but I like it. As I said, I'm not going to do this instantiate thing because I don't plan to use a storyboard. Because if I can avoid it, I don't like using storyboards, and I will avoid it. To start, let's move some things around. So let's create a new group. Coordinator. And then we want to do a new file. Or can we just command N here? N. Swift file. And this will be coordinator. This is our protocol. So yeah, it's an abstract class, and we have to create implementations of it. Protocols are the same as like an interface in Java. You can also implement some base functionality for the classes, functions, which then basically turns it into an abstract class in Java where you can implement some things, but yeah, so coordinator, and then what do we want? To copy paste. That's what we want. Right, the idea here, your child coordinators, child views that you move to. In this project, there'll be like one. So you'll have the main coordinator will be the list view, and then when you click on a movie to get its details, it'll navigate to the details view and present that. We need to import UI kit, and that should stop complaining. Why are you running UI navigation controller? Yeah. Okay. Oh, he already had it. While making protocols, he does like to, he explains that he likes to add the storyboard implementation for initializing. This isn't like a bad thing. I just prefer not to use storyboards. So I either like to have each view controller as its own file, with a Cocoa, touch a zip file, which is like your UI design and then the corresponding code, or just do everything in code. And honestly, leaning more and more to doing everything in code. So I think that's how I'm going to try do this. We'll see how that goes. If I break down and need to do some actual interface design, that's fine too. So we aren't going to have a main coordinator. We're going to have like our list coordinator that's going to present our... let's see. What's a good folder structure? It's not really view controllers. How I used to do it. Yeah, let's do that. So we're going to have new group. View controllers. And then for each one. So let's new group. We're going to have a movie list view controller. Okay. New file. We just gonna have a Swift. No, if we do a Cocoa Touch class. All right, now this is sort of a design question which I wasn't planning on reaching already, but basically, do you use a table view or do you use? I think I like to do a normal view controller, and I can slap a table view in it, and it's just nicer for if I need to do anything else. So for instance, on the designs here, there's an action bar at the bottom. The normal table view controller doesn't include that. There's this header, which I'm also going to look at doing a little bit differently. So let's do it's a collection view controller view. You're not going to help me here. Fine. UI view controller collection. Right, well, we're just going to do a UI view controller. We're not going to create a zip. We're going to try to do it programmatically. I hope I haven't forgotten everything. It is going to be movie list view. Did I name it? No, the class is movie list view controller. And it is in movie list view controller. Great. Cool. So here's our view controller. We don't need to implement this. This is for using Storyboard for navigation. For testing, we can do a let label equal UI label. I think no. Okay. Oops. Label dot text equals movie list view. Oh. Controller. We can just say navigation controller dot title equals what was the title? Wookie movies. Wookie movies. Oops. Okay, cool. So for a Swift 101 thing, this is a little different to other languages. The question mark means that navigation control is optional. It might be null, or null is, Java's null. It's the same thing. If it were null and we just did this, well, it would have your compile error. But basically, in Java, that would break, right? You get a null pointer exception because you're trying to access the property of a null object. In Swift, if you do a question mark, then it's sort of acknowledging that it might be null. And if you access it and it is null, it just doesn't continue. It stops here and carries on with the rest of your code, which is nice. It's nice functionality to have. You don't have to check that it's null. You can just say, if it's null, do this, or if it's not null, do this. Otherwise, just skip ahead. So let's just try add this. I might create some utility functions for load constraints because they can be a bit tedious, but just for our test here. So we go view dot add subview label. Oops. And then we can just say this layout constraints. We say so the way that constraints work, they affect how everything sits on the screen relative to everything else on the screen. You need to use constraints. If you don't, your stuff will disappear when people flip screens and things, and they're important, they're powerful, and some people find them tedious to begin, but they're pretty much indispensable. You don't really have a choice. So we're going to say, and they work like linear algebra functions. So we have y equals mx plus c. It's the same. So item, and then the property of the item, so this is your y, is related to another item, which is your x, and then the item's x here. This is really the x, and this is your m is the multiplier, and plus c is your constant here. But we can say label is our item, and we want to neatly pop all of these below each other like this. Yeah, there's actually there's a nicer way to do this. Say label dot center y anchor equals view dot center y anchor dot constraint. Am I doing this wrong? Yes, I am. I think I'm a little rusty because, God, my job just so much mind-numbing. Like, there are some fun things, but we don't create a lot. At least not a lot like this. These tickets are few and far between. Label.yAnchor.constraint is equal to view. View in a view controller is the main view that takes up the whole sort of view content. That isn't sort of bind a navbar navbar or something like that. So you want to center y anchor, and then we just want to activate. Is active true. Okay. So what this is doing is we are adding to our label a center y anchor that's to center it vertically in the screen. We're setting it equal to the center of the views. Well, the center of the view being the parent and container of the whole view controller. And we're going to do the same thing for the center x. Oops. X anchor is equal to center x anchor, and it is active. And I think that's... So, this, if it has a navigation controller, the title should be Wiki Movies, and it should have a label in the center saying Movie List View Controller. In here, I think we want to do our... You know what? Yeah. Now we need a coordinator. So this is our movie list coordinator now. It is not a Cocoa Touch class, it is just a Swift file. Movie list coordinator. Class movie list coordinator, and it is a coordinator. Alright, let's take a squiz back here. So, in their basic implementation, there are the child coordinators, which we will have. There's the navigation controller, which isn't set initially, and the start function. These are all on coordinator, yeah? Yeah, so they're all things that we have to implement. So let's just copy pasta this bad boy, which is 90% of coding anyway. No, most of this stays the same. Let's just import UI kit. I think I can take foundation out here. I don't know why this is. Did the guy like mistype UI navigation controller? Okay. Right. Now we're not going to use instantiate instantiate here. We are just gonna let VC equal movie list view controller. And that should, so this creates an instance of our movie list view controller, which is the one with just the label in the middle. And, sorry, what's going on? We're playing games. And it presents it, or it pushes it to the top of the navigation controller. So to use this, we need to edit our app and scene delegates. Scene delegates doesn't actually do anything right now. We might have to override it. Our app delegate uses the scene configuration, default configuration. I've overwritten this before and I know it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Is there really nothing happening here? Oh, you need to... Oh, it's been a while. So, I think... I'm going to just refer to my old app. in our info, do we have main storyboard, or did we just, is that deleted? So info plist. There's quite a lot more in this info plist. Oh, I'm gonna have to add the transport security settings. That's all right though. Main storyboard file base name. Did I just delete that? We keep our launch screen. Enable multiple windows. No. Okay, sure. So what if I just delete this entry? Okay. What could go wrong? Application scene manifest. Scene configuration. So it does use... This has a storyboard. Oh, but this one doesn't. Application session role. So we don't have our storyboard here. Now I just need to look. So scene delegate here. Aha. We'll connect to UI session. Let's have a look. Okay, so use this method to optionally configure and attach UI window to the provided window scene. If using a storyboard, the window property will automatically be initialized and attached to the scene. This delegate does not imply that connecting scene or session are new. Use codelets. Okay, well, this is my old project that works. So we're going to copy paste this bad boy once again. No original code will be written in this project. So we check if there's a legitimate window scene, otherwise we return. So just nothing will display. Although, actually, what am I saying? Yeah. So then we have window scene. So then we can create a window. We can set our root view controller to. Oh, so let's do let nav controller equal UI navigation controller. That just creates a new navigation controller. Are there any properties that we want there? With the root view controller. No, we don't want actually to set the root view controller. Not like that, anyway. We want the Windows root view controller to be nav controller. And then, I don't know if this is going to work. Do we want to actually reference a coordinator here? Var movie list coordinator. If we could do like a lazy one. Lazy var movie list coordinator. We can just return. And this one's a navigation controller. So we could always say let nav controller equal UI navigation controller. Let's create that here. This. Lazy must not be used on a computer property. Oh, okay, that's fine. There's that. This way. What do you mean? Oh, yes. Data. There we go. Okay, so we create a window. We don't need this anymore. We can just use nav controller. And then we can say movie list coordinator dot start. I don't know if that'll work, but let's find out. This is right. I'm also going to delete view controller. This is move to trash. We don't need this. Let's see what happens. It's probably going to build succeeded. Hey, it's a black screen. Okay. simultaneously satisfy constraints. A broke constraints? Interesting. That's not what I was expecting to happen. That's not what I was expecting to happen at all. Okay. So it doesn't like... Oh, sorry. Enable.translate. I forget this every time. False. Right. So basically, by default, Xcode or Swift will try and create sort of constraints for you for UI components, and this tells it not to. However, I don't know why everything's black. Because that's kind of weird now. I wonder if I make this white. How do I spell text color? White. Otherwise there's some other display issue going on. Hey! It is displaying. I don't know why navigation controller is not. And I've seen delegate. I wonder. Alright, fine. Swiftland doesn't like you using two-letter variable names, so let's just movie list view controller. That should stop it crying there. Oh, this is progress, man. We have a running project. It's just doing some weird things. I suppose because it's being created completely programmatically. Is the title bar here, I wonder? Because I don't see a title, but it could also be a color thing. Navigation item dot text, no. Font, no. This is very interesting. It'll just do this lazy var. I don't really need, then I can just do this. Yeah, that all works. And am I using this? Oh, I am. What if I don't know what this does. The convenience method to show the current window and position in front of all the other windows at the same level. If you only want to show the window change is hidden property to false. No, okay, that's fine. So it's kind of nice to have a theme. Consistent theme in the app. Let's see. We have an assets. And I think we can have a colors. We don't have an icon. I'll make us an icon at some point. An accent color. Well, what am I looking at now? I'm looking at the other app. Okay. So I think these view controllers I did design like this. So that doesn't really help me. Let's minimize this for now. What is our accent color? Well, let's just try, like, style this thing. So if we say, actually here, we can do this lazily. Let's have controller equal blah. Turn nav controller. And then here we can say oh. Okay. No. Okay, new plan. Swift style navigation controller. Bar style is translucent. Text title attributes. Okay. Dot. So that is. Oh, this is in the nav controller. Well, what if we say dot navigation bar dot. There we go. Bar style dot default. That changed nothing. Black. Ooh, that did change something. Although I still can't see any text. Let's just have a look, see quickly. I just want to see. So I jumped the gun a little bit here. So in app delegate, they have the coordinator. Okay, they did it in an app delegate. I wonder. But they basically did the same thing. They created a navigation controller, the coordinator, called the start on the coordinator. Yeah, we did the exact same thing. And the controllers do have weak references to their coordinators. And that's how you handle events. So here, well, here, weak var coordinator movie list coordinator, and then yeah, you gotta set that in the start. So movie list coordinator, no, movie list controller, coordinators itself. For anyone watching, it's important that this is weak, because otherwise you'll get a memory leak. If both classes have a hard reference to each other, they'll never let go of the memory, and every time you open one, every time we do this, every time we make a new controller and we set its coordinator, we create that's what's called a memory leak, because they're two hard references to each other. So the garbage collector, which is what it's called in Java, the memory cleaner basically doesn't know when it can release them from memory, because it basically releases object when there's only one hard reference to it. sort of breaking things down from the end. But if these two are stuck looking at each other, infinite memory usage. So make your delegates weak and your coordinators weak and everything else. And that's fine. And then, yeah, events, this is fine. Yeah, okay, so we've got this down. That's fine, we don't need this anymore. We do want to know what the hell is going on with our navigation controller. And our app. So I don't really... View dot background colors white, black. Let's just see what that does. Okay. Our navigation bar. It's item dot title. I'm pretty sure I normally use navigation controller, but let's just have a look. Well, there you go. Is navigation item not an optional? Interesting. Wookie movies! And alright, we've made some more progress. We've implemented our coordinator, very baseline. We can do a func. No, I'm not going to do that yet. There will be a function here to present a movie details, which will take like a movie details object. Then, yeah. So let's commit this status, because we basically have set up set up initial coordinator and scene. It's not how you spell scene, is it? Config. Cool. Let's push that. Cool. That's great. Okay. That is just about enough of the UI to start. So now I'm going to jump over to loading data, and I'm going to try do that with tests as well. Not UI tests. So let's have a look. This is going to interact with our... First we need to make some models. Oh, well, let's have a look. Sorry. Oops. We know from Postman the format that the data is going to be returned in. Basically, it's just a list of movies. And we can load this JSON directly into Structs, which is nice. Sorry, just gonna grab some water. So I think the first job is to create structs that represent a movie. There really actually is only one model, because there are only movies. Genre is just a string. Alright, cool. So let's copy one of these out. New file. Oops. New folder. New group. Models. There is only one. In Swift file. Movie. So let's make a struct. So you could, there's an argument to be made for a struct or a class. I know how to, well, if I look at the other project I made, I can figure out again how to load JSON into a struct. Additionally, I don't know what the sort of standard is, but in my mind, struct is for constant data that you don't change. Classes are more for mutating kind of complex information. So in this case, the movie we are loading from the backend, and then we just need to store the data for each movie. We don't need to change that data ever. So that's why I'm going to go with the struct. Movie. And then, oops. Here's our data. So we want to name it to match, because that way the JSON decoder can just do a lot of the work for us. So we want back. Let backdrop string. Let cast string array. Let classification. This is also just a string. I think everything's a string. You know what? I can save myself some time. Let director. Oops. When you do too much work. Okay, then genre is the same as this. Genre. What did I just paste? It's a string array, man. Okay. There's actually genres. Sorry. Then, oh, there's something that isn't a string. So, let ID. Alright, now it's going to moan here. Oh my word. Not enough copy paste. Alright, let ID string. SwiftLint will cry here because it doesn't want to have 2 character property names, but we are just gonna ignore it. That's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just ignore SwiftLint. Alright, IMDb rating. Let also underscores. IMDb rating. What is this? Float. Let's length string. Yeah, that's a string. Same for overview, poster, released on, whatever the hell a slug is, and title. So we have length, overview, poster. It's probably quicker to just type in released, although typos, on slug. I don't know what slug is, and title. Okay. So if I build this now, SwiftLint is gonna moan here. Which is unfortunate. You can just ignore. Right, it's actually relevant. So Swift, actually, I think it's here. SwiftLint ignore. Next. Nope. Okay, back to Google. SwiftLint ignore next. Okay, well, disable next is fine. So we're gonna here and it's so there's a lot of different rules, and one of them is identify a name, and that's what's saying only alphanumeric characters, only whatever length property names. And you should generally strive to, achieve your Swift learned. And you can also create a Swift YAML file and edit that to have custom rules, which is fine, but I'm not doing that. I'm just going to go with the default. But that does mean I'm going to be ignoring stuff every now and again. Sweet. It didn't actually complain about ID. And I think this is the capabilities. Yes, that's right. Okay, so we now have a model. Thinking of our design, what's the project going to do? We actually have the front and the back, but the middleman to display these movies. What's going to happen is the project's going to load up. We're going to display our view controller. That's going to fire off or tell the view model. The view model is the bit that's in between. It handles the logic and what to show. So it's going to call the API. That's what we have here in Postman. It's going to call this path. It's going to download all of the movies here into memory. And then it's going to tell the UI, okay, the movies are here. Let's display these bad boys. So that's what we need to create, and that's what we need to test. That's usually where your unit tests will be. You can unit test all kind of things, but for me, that's important. Well, that's the bit that sort of matters. So I'm gonna slap it in here. New file. I know I can do Command N. So we want movie list view model. Class movie list view model. Cool. One thing to bear in mind is that our controller needs one of these. So it's going to have a var view model, which is a movie list view model. It will typically not be responsible for creating the view model. So let's do that in our coordinator, but it can just be a new view model. But if you wanted to configure your view model, use sort of an abstract view model, this is why you do that. Then I think in view.load you'd fire off the event to the view model to say load my junk. It'll load its junk and then it'll fire back to the view controller and say the junk is loaded and then populate the view. This is going to have a var. I like to have it as private. Var movies, which is a list movie. And initially, it's just going to be an empty list. Does it prefer this format? It does. Okay, right, calm down. Cool. So what do we want to do? All right. Important things about unit testing. There are different ways to do it. Test-driven development is a favorite, but not by everybody. Test-driven development involves creating tests basically before you have the code to test, and then you create the code to test to fit into your tests, and it does help. You do get fewer errors. I kind of prefer a bit of a middleman where I'm going to do it like I like to now, basically. So what do I know that this class is going to need? It's going to need to be able to load movies, optionally with a search string. We know that. So load movies. Oops, oh my word. Load movies. Also, this class needs to have a delegate. Weak var delegate. Want to have a protocol. Movie list view model delegate. So what this is how we feed events back to the view controller, and this will basically only have one function. Movies func loaded delegate. This is a movie list to control delegate, and it is optional. This is new class. Okay. Oh, fine. Any object. Are you going to be happy now, or are you going to still find something to cry about? Okay, sweet. So, we know that we're going to want to load movies. We know that I like to add sort of vague comments here. So we want vague comments. That load might take a search ram, which is a string. It can be null. So by default there isn't one. If there is one, we'll add it to our search and return it. What this needs to do is optionally use search param, call the API, populate the movies, call the delegate. Oh, there is going to be movies loaded. It's going to be func load error occurred with, and this is going to have maybe error description string. Cool. Okay. So that's what load movies is going to do. What else are we going to need? We're going to need... Okay, so actually, before I get ahead of myself, we don't just list movies in a list, we list genres in a list. So looking at our preview, we need to return a list of genres, and within each genre we need to return a list of movies. So we want to have func genres. Genres are actually just it's really just a string, but we need to know, I think, no, we don't. It can just be a string. That's all we get back. Func. All right, so we need to be able to get genres. I think this can just be a var genres string. I've never return movies dot. We want to like map. Is it flat map? We we want the distinct. So for each movie, for each genre, but only as long as they're distinct. Swift distinct list or array. Unique values of array in Swift. Yes, this has definitely been searched for before. Make it array set array. Oh my goodness. What is seen? Oof. Okay. So I don't really want to do this I don't want to like iterate through the list every time you call it. So I think using a dictionary maybe. That's kind of, actually, that's cool. So killing multiple birds with each stone. So we'll have a list of movies. And we can also private, how do I spell? Private var genres. And this is going to be a map. So we're going to have string, which is your genre. And then we're going to have a list of movies. Movie. Okay, so that's also empty. So as we iterate through our movies and genres, we can populate this. That'll work. Option to use search param. Clear. Current, oops, and movies, icon type, and genres. Cool. We don't need to do this because I don't want to like loop through these things every time you call. So no, that can be private. So then I want to like, I'm going to need accessors and mutators. Not mutators. These things are only going to be accessed externally. So we want to have a func genre count. Because if we're using a table, that's relevant. Int turn genres.count func genre string. Now you can say at index int. Is it going to cry about at? No. I'm already cheating on the testing here because I should be writing test code for this as I go. But it's alright, we'll I'll write test code for everything, then implement load movies. We'll see what happens. Func genre at, so we're going to return genre dot keys sorted at index. Hey. So return is actually optional, and I always do slap it in there, but my company standard at the moment is to leave it out. Again, with Swift, the practice usually is to use as little as possible, because there's a lot that's optional. Even with your if statements, you can say like if, you know, so a Java if statement is like whatever 1 equals 2, and you do it like that. But with Swift, you don't even need these brackets. You can have them, but the practice is to not use you know, code if you don't need it. Then, if we want, so we're never going to directly access movies, but we're going to get movies for genre. Func movies for genre string int, and this, alright, we're gonna return genres genre count, because that returns a list of can return an optional int, and we're gonna want func movie for genre string at index int, and this is going to be an optional movie. This is going to return, again, I don't actually need return here, do I? Not count. Index. Done. Bam. Cool. I like the idea of just having a big old table view. The only what I'm a little hung up on is this is like 2 table views then. So there's one table view going down, and then within each cell you have another table view going across. And I'm not sure that's ideal. I could have just like a scroll view here, but I don't like that. But I'm gonna try the table view and the table view and just see how things go. I need to also add this bar at the bottom. There's more UI stuff. Let's focus on getting the logic working first. Alright, so our view model currently has properties that we need, including the delegate, and it has access of functions for them. Assuming I haven't forgotten something. This should possibly be optional, because if the index is out of bounds. So if guard, you like using guard, index greater than or equal to genres.count. No, index less than O. Index greater than equal to 0. Okay. Else turn. Return. Wait, what happens if I just do that? No, it's not going to return. No. Okay, that's safer. Cool. So now we can actually create tests. So you create the tests knowing that they're going to fail, but emulating the functionality that you want the class to have. So here's our Wiki movie tests. We're going to create a new test here. New file. And it's going to be a test, not a UI test, a unit test. Next. I'm going to delete the old test. So this is going to be movie list view model tests. It will be there, and we can delete this one. But not before we copy this. Otherwise they are the same. I'm not going to be testing the performance. We are going to have a test example. It's not going to throw anything. We want to have a view model. Our view model, this is going to be a movie list view model that we are going to use in our tests. So let's see. We want to test the movie's load, and then we want to test each of these. We're going to need something that implements the delegate. How quick is the response on this thing anyway? Where's my Postman? It's quite quick. Okay. So we're going to have a test load all movies. We're going to have a func test load movies. So why can I not? Search value or search param. And then we're going to test our, well, this will be alright for now. We're going to need a delegate. Also, I'm just going to quickly take a peek at my previous tests here. So we have our view model. What did I even do with the model tests? Yeah, expectations. Self.expectation description city search. I'm gonna copy paste the hell out of this bad boy. But we do need to initialize. So new model dot equals new view model. View model equals null. So this just cleans it out between runnings. So that's cool. So paste. So our expectation is, this is like a unique string within the test. Expectations you use in testing for asynchronous calls. So if you need to do something, then you need to wait for a response before carrying on with the test. That's when you'll use expectations. You'd use like a semaphore in Java. It's the same thing. All movies. This key is just a unique value. So we want to do view model. We don't have a completion here. Dot. We want to load movies. Then we're going to wait 5 seconds. We don't need a handler. We're going to assert true that. Right. I don't know how many movies are supposed to be returned. But there are movies and there are genres. So let's. We want to assert. There's different asserts we can do. There's more specific asserts. Assert greater than. Well, also, no. Assert dot genre count is greater than 0. I'm assuming that this works that way. Asserts that the value of the first is greater than the value of the second. Okay. Now, we're going to be using view models, so we can do like a God let view model else xct. We can just do sort of a fail. Error. Asserts that an expression throws an error. No. Xct fail? Immediately and unconditionally. Cool. The view model was not initialized. Cool. So now we can use view model without worrying about the optional. So we test that there are genres, essentially. And then we want to do the same thing with movies. That's really all we can test without knowing what genres of movies we're going to get, unfortunately. It's okay though. We basically... Alright, I have to just do a class that uses the expectation. So do that now. Load movies with search param. And now we're going to have search param, and we know that if we use crime, it works. It's not. What is an expectation? It is an XC test expectation. Who is pinging me? Did I just activate something? No? Okay. Hopefully no cause for alarm. So we're gonna have a class in here. Class load movies test delegate, which is going to be a load movies test delegate. So this needs to implement a couple of functions. this refactor? Oh. Okay, let's jump to this. Let's jump to this. Let's not. Xcode, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Oops. So this needs to implement these. I don't know how we get an error to occur in this scenario, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so movies loaded is what we're waiting for, and then also the class needs to have an expectation. So this is once again an XCT test, an XC test expectation. Let expectation XC test expectation. Net expectation. Test expectation self dot. Okay, cool. So then we can say when the movies are loaded, expectation dot fulfill. Okay, so this should basically do what we want. Load movies. View movie list view model delegate. That's what that's supposed to be called. Okay. Do we need this? We don't actually need a reference to this. So what we can do is we can actually do this right at the start. We can then let test delegate equal load movies test delegate with expectation expectation like that. We can delete that, and then we can say view model load movie. Oh, then what we do then is we say view model dot delegate equals test delegate. Cool. And then this should release. So that should work, I think. We need to do the same thing here. So this doesn't need to be optional anymore. We don't need to do this here anymore. And we're going to use this. Cool. Alright, so what we have here are two tests that do almost the same thing, but the one also uses the search. So that way we're testing that the search works. We aren't testing that it like returns fewer, so I might have to look into that still. But either way, now if we run this, it's going to fail because we haven't implemented the logic for the load movies function. But we're going to do that now. So what's cool to do is we can run this. We can see that it fails. God, but he must not fall through. Oh yes, no, that's true. Return. It's going to wait 5 seconds for each one, so it's actually a bit tedious. Is this sad about the line length? It is, okay. There we go. And this is exactly what we expected. The timeout expired because view model isn't calling its delegate. It's also not doing anything else. And the view model has no genres. So this is exactly right. Now we implement the functionality of our call. So in movie list view model, we do what we said here. We just dot remove all movies, remove all. That's not what I meant to type. Okay, cool. Then we need to create our URL session. This is always a copy pasta because I can't freaking remember, but that's okay because we have it here. So here's city model. So API model. Oh, I like this. We have our build URL. We're not going to be building a URL really. I suppose we kind of are. Query item, URL query item. Is this? This isn't something I made. No, this is existing thing. Okay. And then what do we do with our URL? Build URL. Oh, it's just a guard. So then we do a task with URL session shared. Alright. I'm gonna, let's see. Do I want this? I'm gonna copy the hell out of this bad boy, yeah. I've done this before. I reinvent the wheel. But it's nice. So I could just like have a hard reference to the path here. But I like separating out the APIs. So let's do it. This is a Swift file. API model. So there are no different API functions. So this is a bit simpler than don't have an API key. So URL is this. Movies are in it. So build URL with params basically. Equals URL equals. Oh, I was actually using URL components. What a freaking guy. God let URL, but we don't need this anymore. So URL components is a nice way of building URLs because it handles a bit of with string. Oops. Yeah, that'll work. URL components handles like joining and adding things, and it's just nice. Was I using? Oh, I was. Okay, so let's just do URL components. Let's keep that. Like I was saying, it's very handy. So you can just append query items and it does it for you. You don't have to do too much sort of manipulation. Now this with, so we can search param string. And this is optional. This phase equals null, it's the same. We can do an if let search param or search param, and then we can say URL dot query items equals, and we just need an array here. query item with a name and a value. So we know the name is Q and the value is the search parameter. And then, yeah, that's that. So we don't need to append it. We don't need to set it here. Okay, so this will create our URL with our base URL. And if we send a search parameter, it will append it. And then it'll return the URL. So that's perfect. It's very, very simple, but it's nice. It separates out that functionality a little bit. I could test API model. Shall I test it? Let's do it. Yeah, this is a little bit, it feels like overkill, but just, you can't have too many unit tests. You can't. API model, anything where there's like any kind of logic involved, because it just takes one guy who didn't have the context when you created it, and like that's been me before, to go and change the file in the future and break everything. And that's where your API model tests. Func test. URL without search param, and then URL with search param. Func test URL with search param. We don't need a throws. Cool. So we don't even really need the setup and the teardown because we're not configuring anything there. We don't need the space here. Let URL equal. Oh, we need to do our import. Wiki movies. API model dot build URL. Assert not null URL. Assert equal URL.path and API model dot can I not? If I make it internal, private static let internal static let base URL. Accessible due to private, yeah. So test classes can access internal variables of classes, which normally you can't do from outside a class. You can't access private variables though. Okay, well this works. Then for the with search param, this will not work. Oops. This will not work. We can say assert equal, or we can say maybe assert true. Can we do URL path dot in strings? Comparing strings is such a pain. Contains I need a bit more water. We could make it a URL components. Let URL components equal URL components from resolving against space URL. Not sure what that bit means, URL. Let's see. So then let's just force that. Or we can do that nice, like the guardlet from the other test. URL, the URL was not initialized. Okay, so now we'll always have URL. Do we need this? Resolving against space URL? Or is it optional? It's not optional. I don't know what it does. No man. I want to know what this initializer is, not what URL components are. Are you gonna tell me? You're not gonna tell me. Okay. Well, it can be done with a string, so that's alright. So the string, what's the from? A decoder. No. URL dots. I think it's absolute URL, which should actually probably. Yeah. Okay. Now this is optional. We can assert not nil though. And then we can assert equal components dot query items count 1, query items 0 dot there's name and value. Name is Q and the value is, what did I pass? Nothing. With string. With is not a great okay. Not very descriptive, is it? But either way, the search param is going to be, let's just use crime again. And this should be equal to crime. Okay, these tests should pass. And if they don't, that's helping me debug stuff. Cool. So we know that the URL builder function works and that the one with the param also works. That's perfect. Next is this view model. So now we don't need to optionally do anything there because it's part of build URL. Let URL guard let URL my word equal API model dot build URL with search param else return. We could do an error here. Dot load error building URL. But this is this is going to display to the user, and this isn't a very helpful message for the user, unfortunately. But it's okay. Otherwise, just nothing happens, and then what? Okay, so then the next step, we want to use the path. So let's go quickly look at our URL session handling here. So that's pretty simple. We just do a task, which is a URL session data task, and we say resume. This doesn't actually work because we have to set the header still. Which we might use our API model for. Populate the movies, call the delegate. That's going to happen in here. Alright. We're getting there. So the next step. Alright, like I said, we need to set the auth in the URL session. I can't remember how to do that. Okay, let's see. Swift OS set header in URL session. This is why I was considering LMO5 as another pod, because it's a different way of doing. Aha. So your components, query items, let me get the URL. Admin for header field. Okay. Thank you, guy on the internet. Hey, I'm logged in. I have an inbox? No. Well, if this works, I'll upvote you. How about that? Okay, cool. So let's do a request. I don't know why this is indented. I don't know if I need to set this, because I think that by default, yeah, it is get, so I don't need to set it to get. Set param. Alright, our value, I want to slap this in here. Static let bearer. You know what, actually we could do in this model, we could do this. So it's not significant enough. Equals, let's just copy it here, so it's bearer wiki 29. Oops. That's fine, and then from here we can say authorization, which is the key. Is API model dot bearer token, so that's fine. And then I'm such a freaking snot monster at the moment. Hay fever going wild, I apologize. A professional streamer would have muted there. A professional streamer, I am not. We have our URL. Shared data task with request. Maybe, do we need to set that thing to get if it's a data task dot? That's what HTTP method. Get. Maybe I should try it without. It's just URL. No. Oh, but it was a data task anyway. I'm gonna leave that out for now and just see what happens with request. Request. Alright, well we now have our authentication in, so that's good. Now we just need to pass the response. Alright. Again, back to the old app. So here I handled a search response. So this is kind of similar. It creates a big old pile of cities from a function call. I just don't remember how I do that. City results. We have a decoder. Yes, JSON decoder. This is exactly what I'm kind of looking for here. JSON data. JSON serialization with data. Data. Do I use the response at all? Yeah, so this is where we check for errors. And also where we populate. Okay. So I like having a separate function for this, and it does need to be private func. I could just copy paste this whole thing and I will be back and forth quite a lot, but let's type it out so that we go through exactly what we're doing here. Handle load movies result. Now this needs the data, the response and the error. Are these all optional? They are. Okay, so we want a data. We're just going to pass these through here. Response URL response error. Okay, I'm going to keep going until midnight, which is in 40 minutes, at which point my power is going to switch off because I live in the ass end of the world, that is South Africa. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. What can you do about it? Sweet fuck all, besides flee the country. Anyway, so I'm going to keep at this for another 40 minutes. I won't be finished, so I'm going to try carry on tomorrow and the next night until I'm done. Okay. So, just referring back, you can see, right, I don't have a completion. There's sort of two ways to handle asynchronous responses like this. Either you can use a delegate, which is what we're doing now, or in this older project, Weather app, you can send a completion closure. It's like passing a function as an argument. So completion is a function that's sent through by the do city search, and it's called when we finish. So I'm not going to be calling a completion, but I am going to call the delegate functions in the relevant places. So we want to check if there's an error. We want to check if there's a response, if the response is valid, and then we want to check if there's data. So if let error, that's not how you spell error, equal error. Then we want to call delegate dot load error code, error dot localize description. Cool. Oh. Then we want to say else if. Oops. What do you want to check? So you want to check the response code. So let's have a look quickly in our Postman. The response code should be 200. That's standard. It responds as SVURL response. Okay. If let response equal response as. So you're just gonna cast this now. DDB URL response. I think, yeah, URL response is an object that doesn't have. It doesn't have a status on it. So we need to try cast it and then response dot state. What is it called? Says code. Did I screw that up? No. State. What is going on? Code not equal to 200. Oh. Oh, it's just freaking typos now. Okay. Right. Again, just typos for days. So first we check if there's an error. Then if there's not an error, we check if there is, if the response code is valid. If it's not, we again want to delegate an actual error, but this time we'll do the string. Blah 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 blah. What did I say? Unexpected server response. Please try again. Oh, I love those. They tell the user nothing. It's so frustrating. Server response. Please try again. Yes, seeing errors like this is very frustrating, I know. Alright, then we need to check else. So now we want to check that our JSON or our data is in a valid format and that it's not null. If it is, we again need to delegate a response error or an error code. So copy paste this bad boy so that I'll explain it. So we check this if let data equals data is checking that data is not null. Let JSON equal JSON serialization to JSON object with data options allow fragments true. So this attempts to then cast the data to a map of string and innies. Is that what we're actually expecting? What we are expecting from our response is yes. It says movies and nothing else. It's got one key. Why isn't it just an array? Okay, don't get frustrated. So so this at this point our JSON's in the correct format, although it may not be exactly what we're looking for. Just put this down here. Here in the old one, it threw an error if there was data. We can instead, let's do that. Oops. Right. Let's. So movies is just an array. Movies equal JSON. It's just movies. Can't spell movies. And it is an array of string arrays. As an array of string any's. So if you wanted to be like type safe, you could try to do more specific things here, but you can't. We can't, because although they're almost all strings, some of them are arrays and some of them are floats or doubles. Okay, if we get this far, okay, then we probably have a valid response. Else, we're gonna return the same thing. In unexpected server response, please try again. Or we can actually just say invalid server response, please try again. Cool. So what we want to do now is change this list of movies, which is JSON at the moment. I haven't explained what JSON is, but JSON is just a format of presenting information. This is JSON. You have like keys followed by either arrays or objects and values. So I don't know how better to explain this. It's just a way of representing data, and it's very commonly used to send data back and forward between APIs and endpoints. Just gonna keep an eye on the time. I hope we get this working still tonight. If we get the whole API working, that's nice. Then I can focus on the front end tomorrow and going forward. So now we need to cast this list, this movies, let's call it movies JSON. Oops. To our actual list of movies. Do we actually use movies? No, we don't. We actually just use genres. We don't use that. I actually just want to cast them individually, is what I want to do, so that I can populate the map sort of logically. So now we need a decoder. Okay. This can also throw an error. So let's slap this bad boy in here. So we have a JSON decoder called Decoder. We have our encoded JSON with movies JSON. And then we have our Yeah. Movies. Try decode movie from encoded JSON. We don't have a success with this. Our message it's the same thing. Alright. So movie convert to decodable. Alright, yeah, that's not a problem. Movie decodable. Do I need to add anything for that? No, I don't think so. Okay, sweet. So now, if everything worked, we'll actually have a list of movies. This function's kind of too big. We don't need this. Movies and genres, that's fine. I'm going to do another private func populate genres with a movies, which is a list of movies. Okay. Maybe we don't clear them here. Maybe we do that when we get a valid response. Alright. Self.populate movies. Cool. That's good. Next step. Alright, I have an idea. So, we only want each genre to appear once so that we can list them nicely. Here. There are keys, because they're just strings. And then we want to... It's for each movie, for each genre of that movie. So let's give this a go. For movie in movies, and then for genre in movie dot genres. Let's rent movies. Cool. Genres with a key. Genre. Otherwise, we just want a new one. Okay, and then current movies dot append movie. This needs to be a var. And then we need to append. So genres, genre equals current movies. Okay, so what's happening here is we are getting whatever the current list of movies is for the genre that we're looking at for the movie, or creating a new empty list if there isn't one. Then we're adding to that list the current movie. And then we're resetting the list of movies for the genre to this list. This should do what we want to do. And then at the end we need to call delegate.movies loaded. I know a lot of companies really want you to keep your functions tiny. This is already bigger than some places would like, but I'm not going to lose too much sleep over that. Right, we're testing if we need this, and then the movie's called the delegate. This happens in handle. Oops. Data response error self. I'm leaving this comment just to make that stop complaining. Okay, cool. If everything's working, this should now populate up the property with genres and movies. So we can test it with the tests that we wrote. This only tests that there are genres. We can test like for genre in viewModel dot For index in 0 dot dot less than view model genre count. Set greater than dot movie for genre index. Wait a tick. Dot movies. Yes, this is the count for dot genre at index. So now what we're doing, I don't know why I have this. One too many brackets. Okay, cannot convert type into expected. So we can just so the genre might be null. So you can just also, this is slipping in the quality a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna blame it on a late night. But it will at least test that for each genre there are movies, basically, which should always be the case. So I can do the same thing here. We check that there are genres and we check that each genre has movies. It shouldn't be possible to have a genre without movies because you're only adding a genre when you come across a movie for that genre. So let's run our tests and see what happens. This is actually testing quite a lot because we haven't tested any of this functionality yet. Whoa, so this one worked, but this one didn't. That's weird. Did it just time out? Maybe? Well, it did time out. And this one didn't. Okay, so when we're adding a search parameter, when we're adding a search parameter, it's not hitting the backend. So let's have a look at our view model. We can debug too. So what's different? If we have a search param, why would, that's weird. Does it like, is it very concerned about having slashes at the end? I don't think so. No. I don't. I refuse. That can't be it. Let's debug a little bit, hey? Okay, so we can put a breakpoint there. We can go to our movie tests, run this one. Okay, cool. We hit our breakpoint. We can see our URL here. It's exactly what we would expect. request. I wonder if it's... We should actually put a breakpoint in here. So just press play. Right, we go where we think. Error is null, there is data, and there is a response. So we can step in. This is the one that should work. Alright, yeah, it's doing exactly... So we actually know that this works. I'm kind of flogging a dead horse here. I wonder if there's a logical error with the genre population. Let's just press play. We know that this works. Whoa! No, we don't. It didn't work. Which one did I run? Oh, it exceeded 5 seconds. Yes, it did. Definitely. Play, 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 play. Okay, test succeeded. Alright, that's fine. That's exactly what we'd expect. So, then, this is only returning essentially, I think, one wrong test genre. Let's see what this is. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, I mean the timer's gonna fail, but that's alright. Just press play. Okay, so it did return. It returned data, there's no error, and there is a response. So let's step in. Let's change my breakpoints. It is going in here. Okay, cool. Alright, this probably means, let's disable these breakpoints, that we have an error populating our JSON or something to that effect. It decodes. It's looking good. Oh no. Invalid server response. So it got this far. Play. Cool, alright. Interesting. Wonder if I can did it get to movies or... Yeah, but then it didn't decode to an array of movies. Let's have a look quick. Movies from encoded JSON, which is movies JSON. Okay. What if we like go in... Oops. Go encoded JSON. I don't know what this is gonna do. Movies? JSON? What's this gonna print out? This looks right. I wonder if there's one that has a different format. IMDb rating 8. Ooh, what is this? What is that? There's 9. So wait. If we search crime, there are only like 2 results. The rating is 8.9 and 9.0. Here, let's just go through all of these. Nothing. No man, there's nothing funny there. So it'd be nice actually if we could try and... Okay, wait, I have an idea. Stop. Instead of doing this as part of the if, oops, X, not backspace, we can do a do catch the same thing. Now we might be able to see what the error is. If it's something specific. This isn't nice, throwing the same error 3 times like this. That's okay, we're just debugging at the moment. Hopefully we can pretty it up in the future. Okay. No! I should have just run this test, and I ran both of them by accident. Okay, so we have an error now. Error. Local description. Send wrap. Oh, something's null. Oh wait, no. Localized description is null. That is not. Oh. Error is null. But it did catch an error. What? Okay, so what's likely happening here is that there's some value that's empty or something that I'm not catering for, and I'm gonna have to find that. I could no. Okay. Oof, going through each one's going to be a bit tedious. Are there any nulls or nulls or null? There could be maybe some that don't have all of the values. Cost, classification, director, genres, ID, IMDb rating, length, overview, poster released on slug title. You see what I could do? It sucks, but for debugging, it's right. We can say let's see, for movie JSON movies JSON, we can do this basically. Let encoded JSON equal blah. Right. It's gonna just disable this. Oops. I don't mean to keep adding more breakpoints. We have a decoder. This is the old one. We're not gonna do this right now. It's gonna hopefully break here. So now we're going through each movie decoding it to a movie. We don't actually need to do anything with it. Basically, this should break. So let's try again. Let's run, replace. Now hopefully we'll be able to see which movie is different and then update our okay, so what if we do a movie JSON here? Movie JSON. What movie is this? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Funny. Okay. What does this not have? Or have that's in a different format? I have no idea. It looks pretty much the same as all the others. Let's just go paste it next to something. In notes. And then underneath we can just post whatever came before it. This one. We can compare notes. Well, the crime ones work. So let's just do this. Ooh, okay. Relax. Title. Basically, odds are that one of the fields isn't there. So, well, that would be my guess. Or a field's coming back in a different type. Let's see. Backdrop. Cast. String array, yes. Classifications, there for both of them. Director. Wait a tick. Here director is a string. And here it's a fucking string array. That is not cool. Why would you do that? Okay, well, we found our error and I'm going to resolve this tomorrow because in a few minutes my power is going to go out. We need to allow for directors to be either an array of strings or a single string. I'm not sure how to do that with the struct and the JSON decoding, so that's something to look into. I'll probably try look into it during the day. But at least we found the problem. We need to allow for director to potentially be a list instead of just one. Okay. But we are mostly done with loading the data. We have tests for it. We have most of the functionality for the view model. It's gonna have to be updated, but yeah, it's a start. And next time we can finish that up and then start on our UI components. It's been good progress. Importantly, we need to commit. So you can see all our new files added. Lots of things. Models and view model. Began implementation and testing. Push. And that you should always do before you finish working. At least commit. Okay. I'm going to open this wild thing that's going to show 1,000 of me now. Before I do that, I enjoyed this a lot. like I said, I'm gonna carry on the project part 2 tomorrow night. Might break this up a little bit. I'll see. Well, I might try. I'll see how it goes. And yeah, this has been good. Thanks to everyone who watches, and look after yourselves. Oh, OBS. Stop streaming.